severity of the disease. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can start now. So I'm glad to introduce. I'm sorry, Daihai A. From Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I should have asked you how to pronounce your first name. Sorry about that. Okay. And he will talk about combining COVID-19 death data and serological survey result to estimate the COVID-19 attack rate. So thank you. Please start. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Margot. I hope my pronunciation is correct. It's Daihai. Yeah. So I'm very honored to have this opportunity to present my work for this webinar series in epidemics between France and China. So this is today's outline. I will talking about some background and about in general modeling of a pandemic, and then I will talk about two science papers. Okay, two science papers on Manaus. I hope I'm not offended anyone, but I'm quite strongly criticize two science paper. So basically, the two science paper related to blood donor data, try to using blood donor data to infer the attack rate of COVID-19 in Brazil, in Manaus. It's a city, it's a large city in Manaus, in Amazon province in Brazil. This is a collaborative work with my friends, colleagues, especially Louis Stone and Yale and my still other colleague students. There are many of them. So before I start, I want to say some pretty obvious rules from my personal experience. I setting a rule for myself and my students. So because for modelers, we have data, right? So before we develop a model for data, we need to ask the questions, whether the data is of good quality, can we trust the data? It is a big question. And can we check the quality of the data from a different source? How the data were collected? Are they biased, or what is the range of the uncertainty? And you do not want to build a model for unreliable data. That's the last thing you want to do. And regarding model, we prefer a simple model and as less as possible assumptions. And those assumptions should be biologically reasonable. Try to use information criterion. I think we needed to using information criteria. That is the trade-off of the goodness of fitting and the model complexity. This concept has been there for I think for decades. I think modelers should everyone should using information criteria. In my personal opinion, we should remove all unnecessary components unless we have a strong reason to include it. And we need to consider more realistic assumptions. Unfortunately, like there are some epidemic model, for example, the SR model, there is some assumption is not realistic. But it's okay. In some situation, it's okay. But in some other situation, it might be not there might be better assumptions. We need to always consider that. So today, actually, I'm criticizing two science papers. One is this paper. It's Science, three-quarter attack rate of SARS-CoV-2 in Brazilian Amazon during a large unmitigated epidemic. And there is a lot of famous modelers, researchers. They basically say, in November 2020, in the city Manaus, it's a city in Brazil, there are more than 75% of the population being infected. Basically, their conclusion is that based on blood donor data, and many researchers, including myself, think is wrong. Not myself. Many think it's wrong. And after that, they claim in November 2020 there is already more than 75 of the population being infected. After that, after science published that work, there is an even higher wave in Manaus. Right after that, there is even higher from the mortality. There are a lot of deaths in the city. And after that, the team, also with many famous researchers, published another paper. They say this due to the gamma strain, the P1 variant emerged in that city, causing the second wave. And with very simple mathematics, we can see that the second wave has a higher magnitude than the first wave. There must be a high proportion of reinfection, because the first wave, based on their theory, the first wave has an attack rate 75%, more than 75%. The second wave has a higher magnitude, that is another 75%. 75 plus 75, that is 150%. So the city, everyone in the city being infected 1.5 times. Do you believe this? Do you believe that in a city of a 2 million population, they be infected, everyone being infected 1.5%? Personally, I don't, I just surprised why researchers think, Science magazine, that's in our, in most researchers' view, that's the topest magazine, academic magazine, published this kind of result. Think that a city, everyone in the city infected 1.5 times. I was surprised. Many researchers also surprised. So let's give you a view of what exactly happened in Brazil, okay, including Manaus. Here is 20 cities, 20 large cities in Brazil. So they have a very good medical system to some extent. Their data very good. They have a very good data. This I showed is the red circle is their severe respiratory infection deaths in the country, in the cities. Okay, according to the law, they have to report that severe respiratory infection in that year, in 2020 and 2021. Basically, it's COVID-19. Okay, basically, severe. You have a severe respiratory symptom and you die. Basically, that's the reason. And here you can see a quick picture is there. Most of them have 2 waves. Okay, this is Manaus. It has 2 waves. You can see from the mortality, I'm not lying, from the mortality, the second wave higher than the first wave. And that science, the first science paper say, in between here, in November, 75 population being infected. So after that, there is another 75 at least. So using rule of thumb, you know that they basically saying everyone in the city being infected 1.5 times. Do you sincerely believe this? And if that's true, it's very bad to modelers, to us, mathematical epidemiologists, because we have a theory, herd immunity. The herd immunity, if that's true, if everyone can be infected 1.5 times, the herd immunity, natural herd immunity is wrong. Right? Because initially we believe COVID-19 has R0, 2, or 3. So basically it's, it's 80% people be infected, then it will die out. Let's first ignore reinfection, okay? But if what the theory in Manaus is true, then just like this title in BMG, so this is the final nail in the coffin for natural herd immunity. But many researchers don't believe it. Even in this article, they question that. They question this is related to the first rule I said. Is the data reliable? Is that you're modeling that blood donor data? Is the data reliable? You should question that. This is a New York Times article. Okay, virus variant in Brazil. They refer to the gamma variant. Okay, the gamma variant actually, by the way, the gamma variant replaced by Delta. Okay, at the moment, Delta is being replaced by Omicron almost everywhere. Okay, so virus variant in Brazil infected many who had already recovered from COVID-19. So basically, as I said, from their calculation, 20 to 60% is reinfection. It's against many observations in many countries. Even in Brazil, the observed, the confirmed reinfection less than 100. Less than 50 actually by today, less than 50. Okay, but I need to emphasize, all the data we reported, we confirmed the cases are only a proportion of true cases. Okay, but there is a limit. Okay, there is a limit. So if you observe, let's say 10, the real could be 100, could be 1,000, could be 10,000, but it's more likely, let's say, given 10 observed, it's more likely the true, probably 10,000. It's very unlikely 1 million. The true is 1 million. If I give you two choices, I tell you, okay, we observe 10 reinfection cases, and we'll give you two choices. So the true is 10,000. And the true number is 1 million. Which one is more likely? I think it's common sense. The smaller one, the 10,000, is more likely comparable to 1 million. Because they basically say like a 50% of the population being infected twice. Okay, right? So let's briefly review. So we have a SER model. I think everyone here understand. We have a SER model. So there is no reinfection here. We assume long-term immunity, then we can have a herd protection threshold, right? This is a herd protection or critical vaccination ratio. We need to vaccinate this proportion such that it's being controlled, the pandemic will control. If the vaccine is not 100% effective, we need to divide by the vaccine efficacy. So in large, there's a little bit, okay? So that's the herd immunity theory. I still believe in that. Because they're using blood donor serological data, okay? They recruit some blood donor, blood donation, okay? They're using blood donation, they send the sample, they checking the serological markers in the blood. Then they like here IgG, the IgG or IgM, they checking that. This IgG IgM are some serological marker show that someone being infected in the past. Like probably you infected 2 weeks ago. Okay, let's say you infected 2 weeks ago, and here you would have a PCR positive. In this range, you have a PCR positive, and in this red range, you have a symptom. Okay, this is in this range, you will be PCR positive. Okay, and then after that, you would have IgM, some kind of antibody. Okay, specific antibody against COVID, SARS-CoV-2. this blue one is IgG. Those two would decay over time. The IgG, IgM, those antibody would decay. So at some time, in some interval, using some machine, some testing machine, you would show that you would have positive antibody, okay, against COVID. After somewhat, after 3 months, 5 months, or 6 months, this could drop to a level lower than the threshold, such that you would be determined as negative PCR, the serial negative. Okay, serial negative just negative. It's then the serological result cannot tell whether you are infected or not. You know, only in some interval, only like in half year, if you are positive, it's indicated you be infected half a year ago. But if you negative, then the test failed. The test cannot determine whether you are infected or not. You know, that's the limitation of this machine. We need a more sensitive machine, but based on most of the machine, and also there's a natural decay. You know, our antibody waning, but not necessarily. This serological negative not necessarily mean you are completely susceptible to the virus again. Okay, that's may there may be positive correlation, but not necessarily mean, you know, negative serological result mean 100% susceptible. Also, I question that. And then let's come back to this work. So this science paper, second science paper, basically they say this is there are two viruses. Okay, the previous virus causing that many deaths. The second virus, the gamma virus, caused another many deaths. Okay, they basically using their model, they can fit in that. This is the proportion of the second virus, gamma strain. In the city, in November, there is a new variant. It's called gamma variant, causing a second wave. This is the proportion. The gamma variant, obviously, this gamma variant must be more transmissible than the previous one, such that it can replace it. So this is a proportion. This is the proportion of the variant among all the samples sequenced, and this is they estimate attack rate. They this dots is their blood donor data. Okay, here this bands is their modeling, their model, and this is for the P1 strain. Okay, they basically, you can read it. Okay, they basically say, okay, everyone, 95% of population be infected by the previous strain, and here close to 50 infected by the second strain, and this is R0. So how to combine the death data and the serological data? So I think there is a very simple mathematical formula like this. Okay, I propose to using this, because here someone be infected, and then after a month, you would in your blood you would have antibody. You would show antibody positive. Okay, and then gradually it would decay. So there is a decay function. So this decay function I denote as F. This F is the decay function of your serological positivity over time. We can estimate that from observation data. Okay, and this DT is death data. I personally believe that mortality data is more reliable than the case data, because you cannot negotiate with death. But you know, for cases, it's basically depend on testing effort, right? You know, in some time maybe the testing is more enhanced, the testing, or in some time the testing may be, you know, testing reporting ratio may impact that severely, but mortality is relatively speaking more reliable. if we have assumption here, we assume that the infection fatality rate is relatively constant. This is my assumption. And I didn't see strong evidence to suggest otherwise. The second, the newest strain always more transmissible, but it also, whether it's more severe, whether it's lead to more deaths or lead to less deaths, need more evidence. Okay, need more evidence because it's more susceptible. It's leading to more hospitalizations, and particularly in Brazil, the medical system break down in Manaus. The medical system break down. Actually, the second wave has more deaths. Okay, it's hard to say whether the infection fatality rate going down or going up. So we assume it's constant R. Here it's a convolution. Mathematically, it's a convolution. So this PT is your serological prevalence in the city. We have a data for that, and this is their data. I reanalysis it. So here is I assume the FT. When I'm doing this, I do not know their data. You can estimate this. So I assume it's dropping very quickly. It needed to dropping very quickly, such that my model here can matching the reported serological prevalence among the blood donor data in the science paper. Okay, you see the matching very well. The matching in two cities, the matching is very well. The dotted line is somehow the reported serological prevalence among blood donor, and the solid line is my simulation based on the death data and this hypothesized FT. And if you assume it's maybe not dropping so fast, and then fitting become very poor. Here also I need another assumption. Z needed this another assumption is the infection fatality rate in Manaus is much lower than the infection fatality rate in St. Paul. They have a justification, okay, because this city is very young, the population in the city, it sounds reasonable. It sounds quite reasonable because we know that COVID-19, it's the mortality is mainly from elderly, okay, young people not likely die. But another reason, another condition not favor Manaus is St. Paul is much advanced the medical than Manaus. This is in the north part. The south part is much more economically developed than so that's the question you need. There is medical breakdown in this city. In St. Paul is no medical breakdown. So it's this is assumption they used. It's questionable. It's questionable. Also, this is questionable whether the serological positivity dropping so fast. And then further, if you assume the drop might not that fast, the matching completely failed. And if you assume the infection fatality rate, per infection, the risk of death per infection, if you assume it's not that different, it's different, but maybe not that different, given that the economic difference between the two cities is also huge, then you cannot fit in the data very well. So you depend on their worker depend on two unrealistic assumptions. And there is other explanations. The blood donor data, you can imagine during the pandemic in that city of 2 million, the highest week, every day, 100 people die. Will you go out to donate blood at another time? You just asking yourself, during the pandemic in a city of 2 million, in the highest day, 100 people died. And will you go out first? Second, will you go out to brave enough to donate blood? I think it's a noble thing. It's very brave. We need blood donation in another time. But I'm just thinking the situation. So you are telling me the blood donor data is still as other days. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Not myself. Many other people think that the blood donor data. This is a good idea because you already have blood donor data, right? You have a blood there, and you can testing the serological prevalence, the antibody, and you have an idea how many people are likely be infected. Then you're using that to infer the population. It's a very cheap way to infer the population, but you need to consider situation. You seriously need to consider situation. In other days, I think is very good sample, but during the peak of the pandemic, you see here, other people say there are many factors. Those people are motivated. Those people probably have a higher risk of infection, cannot be representative of the general population. But but science paper anyway published these two works. Basically, that's the same. They have the same argument. They using that believe everyone in the city be infected 1.5 times. And this is my work. I using simple model. I do not believe reinfection. I think there is reinfection, but the reinfection is probably 1%. 1% for something, 1%. Probably we can ignore it. So in my model, I ignore reinfection. Okay, then this is my fitting result. I can matching everything. I can matching the sequence proportion. I can matching the deaths, and here is compare my fitting and their fitting. I think my fitting is better actually. Seriously, I think my fitting is better. They did here, 50% reinfection, zero reinfection, and this figure. I think this figure is better than there. This is the science work because it's obviously biased. For example, these two dots is on the right-hand side below. These two dots is clearly above. So here this is much better. This is much better fitting. This is my work with zero reinfection, and this is the official confirmed reinfection in the country. Okay, in Manaus. Okay, Manaus is in Amazon. Only three confirmed. But we need to emphasize the true number is not 3. Okay, this is confirmed, but how much these 3 represent is the question. Among the 3, actually one of them is some kind of a patient, recovered patient. So my conclusion is reinfection is low. Okay, not like 50%. If there's a meaning, you tell me that you only confirmed 3. Like how serious is that claim, right? I know, they have all the explanations because the testing in the first wave is low, but you just checking how many people enter the hospital, like hospitalized twice. That should be easy to check. Actually, other countries did it. Okay, Israel, Denmark, they did it. The reinfection is low before Omicron. Okay, I need to emphasize before Omicron. Omicron is a totally different story. Okay, and this is my recent work in South Africa. We using a simple model. We estimate beta, delta, Omicron, their relative transmission rate. The Omicron really transmitted fast and probably has a higher reinfection. That's different story. And then I did some for European countries. No time to talking about it. Including France. I fit in the data. This is the vaccine rate, and then I estimated how many population being, how many lives being saved by the vaccination. Here it's my work in France. And thank you very much. This is my papers posted. Okay, 30 minutes.
So thank you very much for this very interesting and challenging presentation. So I would like to ask the people if they have any question. Please raise your hand, and I will be happy to let you ask any question you might be interested in. Actually, okay. So, but okay, then let me ask one question. Then I have plenty of questions, but maybe we can discuss about that later on, right? But my first question is you criticize the blood sampling. Okay, fine, I understand your point. But don't you think that the death data are also biased?
Yeah,
And
that's what I said.
and how do you think it is biased? Because especially, for example, in Brazil, I think there was a lot of deaths that were not reported at some point, right?
Yes,
For
absolutely, yes.
for
Yes.
so
Actually,
your point is to compare the data, right?
yes.
To try to understand the bias in some sense, right?
Yes, yes. Actually, regarding your first question, is the deaths unreported in Manaus? Actually, this work they did very good work. They checking the access deaths. They checking a lot of deaths. I think their conclusion is they not using reported COVID-19 deaths. They using the severe respiratory infection deaths, hospitalized deaths. It's somehow it's good question. Is the deaths unreported? Yes, to a less magnitude, I think, in Brazil, compared to Peru. You know, the neighbor country, Peru, right?
Right.
They're actually the government of Peru, they updated their reported COVID-19 deaths. They times three. They times three, because the excess deaths it's 3 times. You know, it's threefold of the reported COVID-19. So the issue is not I think that the death data is reliable, but the problem is their blind donor data. I think you agree with me, right?
Yeah.
There's other scientists.
What you
there
said.
are other local epidemiologists pointed that, but the tricky thing is, even though there are so many criticized, science still published anyway.
Right. No, but there are many papers that can be criticized in science anyway. So, so it's that's another, maybe to me that's another question. So, are there any other questions? So please don't hesitate. Just please go ahead if you have any questions about this interesting work. So please, let me see. Should I allow you to demand the? Please go. Please ask the question.
Yeah, thank you for your interest talk. And I have one question. And when you fit the model with the number of deaths in Brazil, like without considering the reinfection, like may I ask how you deal with the different IFR by age or by variant?
Two-stream. We have a two-stream model. Okay, we have a two-stream model, so we can separate somehow. We can you know, here this is for the first strain. This is for the second strain. So we can find the new strain proportion. We can find this. The age structure is a good question. The age structure, we also did something. We built a 2 age structure model. Like for example, we cut it. I think we cut it at age 60. Okay, 60 above, below 60, and it's not changing the story much.
Oh, I see. Like, did you find any different?
It's you know, my point. You know, everyone here agree with me. You see, this is their government confirmed the reinfection, right? So you know, it's low. It's low. It's not zero. Certainly not zero. There is. I'm not saying there are no reinfection. There is reinfection. Okay, but according to many reports in Israel, in Denmark, in many other countries, reinfection rate before Omicron is low, and also reinfection is tend to be mild. This is also important. It's tend to be mild, probably less infectious. So those factors not considered in a science paper, I was surprised. I astonished. You know, in this paper, they did a very beautiful model. They assumed reinfection, 50% reinfection, and those reinfection had the same severity, maybe different severity, but had the same infectiousness. You know, I doubt that.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I agree with your opinion, but like, depends on the IFR, maybe the reinfection rates can be changed, right?
Depend on what?
Depends on your assumed IFR by age or by variant. Like when we fit the
yes,
model,
of course. Depend on I said the Omicron is the Omicron has a high. Omicron is already somehow confirmed. It seems Omicron has a this. Let's keep seeing this table from this. I think this number would in next month would go up quickly. Mm-hmm. This is by end of last year. This would go up surely because it's already in. It's already seeing reinfection, a lot of reinfection of Omicron in South Africa and other places. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Are there any other questions? So please don't hesitate. Then let me ask you a technical question then. Well, at some point I think your point in your presentation was to talk about this convolution to describe the evolution of the detectability in some sense in the blood or something.
Oh, in the blood.
In the blood, right? And to describe the evolution at the individual level, right? So, but then the question is, first you define this, but I see that everything goes on over 100 days, right? You are talking about very long periods. So how do you use this at the beginning to deal with data? Because you need to take care of the initial distribution. In some sense, you need to split your convolution and take care of the fact that at the beginning it's not the same because the periods are very long, right? Right. This formula cannot be always true. In other words, it's not always applicable. You need to take care. That's a point I want to make here because I saw many papers dealing with convolution and so on, and actually convolution is valid only after some time. So sometimes it makes sense because you are talking about short period like 1 week or something, right? So, but here you are talking about a very long time process, right?
I understand your question. So this curve, if we have this curve, we can always apply to the death data.
Okay.
But just for the first 100 days, probably it's zero. Probably there's no decay yet.
Yeah.
That's basically, everyone infected, how many people infected, then that's the serological prevalence. It's that. It's then gradually the two, here, let's say, your question here. So this is a convolution, right? But this, we can set, for example, we assume no decay. So
right.
so F is 1. So that is exactly the attack rate, infection attack rate.
Okay.
So initially it's we just ignored the initial part because
I know that's a typical behavior. I know it's a big,
but because the serological prevalence always much later have some data.
Okay. Okay.
So you see here, it's gone up, serological prevalence gone up. At the beginning, it's 0.
Right. Right. Anyway, so okay. Are there any other question? Any more question about this interesting work? Okay, so maybe we can stop here. There is one. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Hello, Professor He. I'm interested in your formula. The parameter are right. The infection mortality rate. What's the estimated criteria of this value? Have estimated value or not? The parameter are.
In this work, I think it's I didn't estimate that in this formula we can simply using this R0 from other studies. So it's something around 0.5%, between 0.5% and 1%. It's kind of many many studies. In our work, we found we believe it's probably 0.8%. Right, and we in our modeling work, like we estimated that. It's 0.8% probably around.
Okay.
It cannot be lower.
I noticed. Yeah, I noticed the value of the variable, the infection mortality rate is 0.32%, right? So, I mean, this value is very important. So, to value their work and your work, do you
Yes,
think it's a?
That's a big difference. That's a big difference. They think 0.3%, but I think it's probably higher than that. Probably higher than that. Their argument is okay. We have a young population, but you also need to consider your medical supply. That's the question. Okay, you also need to consider your medical supply. If you have completely no medical system, you're telling me like 0.3%. I don't buy it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So, any more questions? We still have time for maybe one short. Okay. So thank you very much for this very nice presentation. And I want to conclude this two-day webinar by announcing the talk of next week by Yvon Madé, who is one of the famous French mathematician, who will talk about construction, calibration, and validation of microepidemiological surveillance indicator at national level from wasted water analysis. So he will talk next week, and it's very much related again to another kind of data, the wasted water data. And in order to have some another view of what will happen at short term, by the way, and it's a huge work by, he will present a huge work by his team also. So thank you very much for your today's presentation. I will stop here the recording, and we can continue a little bit to discuss together if you like, okay? So I will stop here, and okay, maybe